we're talking about paradigms and possibility today. And that's been our topic for the month. I didn't know that's what it was going to be, but that's what it turned out. I just go with the flow, you know. God, whatever Spirit wants. Is that the first one? All right. So this is our paradigm. And by the way, do we have any first-time visitors today? Just want to acknowledge anybody here for the first time. No. But it's always so magical when I'm sitting there, and as Ron said, you get up and look and like, wow, there's a lot of people here. So this is the paradigm that we're talking about, the way of peace. Peace as a paradigm. It's based on the same thing that ushered in the way of science. The way of peace is based on the same thing that ushered in the way of science, a leap in consciousness. Wherever consciousness is ready for a shift, you will see ferment and turmoil. The principle to keep in mind is that consciousness wants to evolve. Anyone who knows how to move consciousness is in an evolutionary direction is part of the peace movement. And that is essentially what we've been talking about, that it is a paradigm shift. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Many of you have been here throughout the month, so you have an idea what that is, a paradigm. But for those of you who haven't heard, we're going to be discussing that. And I want today to be, is more like a review today, because the topic for the month has been not heavy so much, but maybe a little different for people. So I want for people to have an opportunity for it to really settle in. So if you have questions or you have comments, where did Maddie go? Maddie's going to have the mic, and she'll be running it around. So this is the time for the interactive portion of what we do. Okay. So paradigm shifts. What does that mean? Do y'all remember this? A fundamental shift in the underlying assumptions of our reality. And there's lots of different kinds of paradigm shifts. I was thinking there was only a few big ones, but as I really got to thinking about this, paradigm shifts happen all the time. All the time. And what it does is it just completely changes the way you look at things. So there are paradigms that affect us like globally, you know, as humanity. Things like when the earth, people believed that the earth was flat, right? And then it was discovered that no, the earth is not flat, it's round. Right? And people behaved very differently based on that information, right? You can imagine that if people believed that, when people believed the earth was flat, they would only travel so far because they'd be afraid that they would fall off the edge, right? So finding out that they weren't going to fall off the edge opened all kinds of things up for new adventures and possibilities. Now, these things can happen to us individually as well, right? Think about when you first learned how to ride a bicycle and you got balance. Right? Remember, you tried and tried and tried, and you fall and get up and keep trying, and then one day suddenly you get it, like you've got balance. And you never forget it. Like for me, I probably haven't been on a bike, I don't know, a couple of years at least, but I never forget how to ride a bike. Once you know how, it's always there. And when you learned how to ride that bike, you were then able to go into different neighborhoods, right? Did your world expand when you got a bike? Right? You were able to see friends in other places, and you know, things just opened up for you. Other paradigm shifts, maybe when, I don't know, videos, for example. We used to have Blockbuster videos, right, in every town. What happened? What happened? A total shift, right? Now you don't have to leave your house to watch what you want to see. It's available for you at the click of a button. When watches came out, digital watches, who used to make the best watches there were before digital?
Timex.
Before Timex. The Swiss. Do you remember the Swiss, right? And the Swiss were the first ones that were approached with digital technology, and they were like, what is that? There's no gears in that watch. That will never work, right? So they got left in the dust. Even though they got the opportunity to look at it first, they said, no, we're not about that. And then, you know, the other paradigm shift that I talked about, because it's just so funny to me, is the great manure crisis, right? The great manure crisis of the 1880s, right? In the big cities where people were, you know, there was just horse manure piling up everywhere, and this was their mode of transportation, and people were worrying, like, what are we going to do? They couldn't shovel the shit out fast enough. And there was no place to put it. So they call this great big huge conference, an international thing. They bring people together. It's supposed to be 10 days. 3 days, they throw up their hands, they go, it's over. You know, it'll be in 50 years. I mean, the stuff is going to be piled up, you know, to the buildings. And what happened? The car was, and the car wasn't born then. The car was actually born a little bit before that. But people were not ready to make the change because they were so invested in life and how it was that even though it was pretty smelly and pretty nasty, at least they were familiar with it, right? But they didn't know what was coming after that. So they couldn't buy in all the way. There are always those people that are on the edge, right? That are living right on the edge, that are willing, well, I'll take a chance. I'll try first. Right? And you're willing to step out. And enough people step out, others will follow. So when we talk about this idea of peace, to me it's very much like that paradigm shift. That people are saying, peace? Peace is, what do you mean peace? That's never going to happen. Don't you know the Bible is full of wars and people fighting and slavery and like all of this stuff? It's just not possible. I happen to believe it is possible. And there are lots of others that are believing that it's possible. But we're right there on the edge of that paradigm shift. Before long, I believe it will become self-evident. Because what we're doing right now, living in this pile of mess, isn't working. It isn't working. It smells bad. It's nasty. Right? We don't want to be around this anymore. Time for the new way to come in. And this is the essence of this shift and the quote that Kelly started with at the beginning of the month. It is the essence of what we teach in the science of mind. And it is that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. There's not God out there, someplace up in the sky in the heavens. Whatever your belief is of God, and every major religion says this, that God is all there is. And all is all, not just a little bit, it's everything. That means it's we can't keep God out of schools. It doesn't matter if we pray or we don't pray. It's there regardless. You may not want to call it that word. Maybe you want to call it energy. Maybe you want to call it consciousness. Maybe you want to call it creator. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. And you can't keep it out even if you don't want it there. Right? It's like gravity. It's like saying, I don't believe in gravity. Okay, that's cool. You don't have to believe it. You're still subject to it, right? Don't try to jump off a building or out of a plane or something and think that you're going to be okay because you don't believe in it. All right. So here is how the paradigms shift. For many of us, as we come into life, you know, we believe that life is happening to us. And I would say probably 90-something% of the population, not just in the US, but everywhere in the world, people think life is happening to them. Like they have no control over what happens. They're victims of reality. Then as things start to change, you grow a little bit more, you get a little bit higher on the mountaintop, you're like, wow, wait a minute, I do have, maybe you watch The Secret. You go, wow, I am a co-creator with spirit. What life happens by me. I'm doing this. I get to call the shots. I get to, how I look at things changes how life shows up for me. That's a great epiphany. That's a paradigm shift in itself, right? For somebody to go from feeling like being a victim, life is happening to me, to life happens by me. And then the next one, life happens through me. Life happens through me. I'm the eyes and ears and hands and feet and voice of God itself, right? That's another big loop on the evolutionary cycle, right? As we're going up evolutionary, life is happening through me. But there's one even beyond that. And that is that life is happening as me. As me. It's really embodying, and that's still, I feel like I just get somewhere between those two. I'm not always in that place of life is happening as me, of knowing that I am spirit and expression. I'm not always there. I don't know about you all, but I'm definitely not always there. I think that is part of our work here on the planet, is to get to that point of realizing, of understanding and living that. But it comes through practice. It comes through through learning and being open and having the courage as life is leading you to experience that. So this is what we're talking about. So anyway, with regard to these paradigms, we move because we get pushed by pain. Right? There are two things that motivate us, either wonderful things or really bad things. So you get pushed by pain or you get pulled by possibility. You know, what feels better?
I like the push.
You like the push? You like the push, yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, some of us do. Some of us have to get hit by that 2x4 before we make the change. Right? Or like I said, the stuff just gets so deep, you just got to go another way. So here are some of the paradigms that that I think are problematic, and I think you might agree with me. The paradigm is that violence solves our problems and somehow making us safer. Right? We believe that. The more guns we have, the bigger our guns are, the bigger our weapons are, the safer we are. And the more of them we have, the safer we are. That is a paradigm. That's a belief that a lot of people have. There's another belief, another paradigm, that there's never enough. Right? That there's some scarcity. There's not enough time, there's not enough money, there's not enough resources. There's a deep, deep belief in scarcity among human beings. Right? And we all, I think we all carry that. I don't know. I mean, very enlightened people maybe haven't been infected with that idea, because I fight it as well. There's not enough of what we need. But here's what we know, that if God is all there is, and God has created everything, everything already exists. Everything that we need is already here. Everything. It's just it's a matter of allowing ourselves and being able to accept that. That's a shift. The corollary to that one, that there's not enough of what we need, is that we need to compete then, or we need to take what we want, because the resources are limited, so I better be first in line. Right? And the end justifies the means. Whatever it takes for me to get that is okay, as long as I'm the winner. There are a lot of people that believe that. And this idea that we're all separate, that we're separate from God, that we're separate from nature, that we are separate from one another. And I love it was an Einstein quote that I used, I think it was last week, that says it really is a delusion, an optical delusion, that we are separate because of our human experience, right? Because of our wiring, because of just how the setup of life. I don't know. That's one of those mysteries. Right? If we are all one, why do we feel like just, my own self? Why do I feel like I'm separate from everything else? And then the corollary to that one is that some of us then are better than others. If we're all separate, we're all individual people, and some of us are a little bit better, we're a little bit shinier, a little bit sparklier, a little bit better than others. And I think these are all problems that we are dealing with right now as humanity, right? That is causing a lot of the heartache and manure, so to speak, that we're seeing around us. Now this, I think, is where it gets interesting. That these things stay in place partly because they serve a purpose for us, right? The negative things that maybe are going on in your own life. If you've got paradigms and ways of being in your life that don't serve you, that you tell yourself, I've just got to lose the weight, or I've got to stop dating the wrong people, or, throw it out there, whatever other things. What kinds of paradigms are people dealing with? The relationship thing. I think I told you I have a relative. We're the same age. He's been married 5 or 6 times. And on the outside, it looks like different women. But they're all manifestations of the same one. And he always thinks it's them. He always thinks it's their fault. But it's like, what's the common denominator here, right? Right? So that's a place where he doesn't even know what he doesn't know. Okay, so here's another part of the paradigm. I talked about this last week, and I wanted to have a thing, but I forgot to bring it. Anyway, if you think about all that there is to know, all that the universe has, like this vast, everything that there is, and put it in a big circle of what there is to know, how much of that do you think that you know? What do you know that you know? Like a little teeniest tiny sliver, maybe. And then how about the stuff that you don't know?
You know you don't know?
That you know you don't know. What about that?
A little bit bigger sliver.
Maybe a little bit bigger sliver, right? But you might know, so you know that you don't know it. That means that you could, if you wanted to study it, you could learn about it. You could talk to people, you could read books, and you could find out what that is. So if I wanted to be an astrophysicist, I could go and get a degree in astrophysiology, I guess is what you call it, right? I know that I could do that. Right, astrophysics. Thank you. So stuff you don't even know, or you don't know. Anyway, so you got those two little pieces. There's what I know, there's what I know that I don't know, and then there's this whole universe of things you don't even know you don't know.
Right.
Right? Like the people who were standing in the horse manure, like they didn't know what was possible with this new innovation, this horseless carriage, these cars. So there are things that are available to you in your life right now, in those areas where you're struggling and you're hanging on to something, that there is a whole other world of possibility for you. A whole other world. The thing is, you have to let go of the thing that's not working. Right?
Oh, now you ruined it.
Right. So I don't know. So what would be a couple of examples of that, where we're hanging on to things that don't serve us. There's a workshop, and it's a whole work that I went to, and it's called Landmark Education, the forum. And one of the principles in the forum is that these things that we don't know, and like we're hanging on to the old stuff. We hang on to the old stuff because it serves a purpose. And they call it a racket. You don't know what a racket is? Mm-hmm. It's like, say you've got a business front, a restaurant, for example. I've seen one or two of these in town that look like legitimate businesses, but in the back room, there's some dirty stuff going on, right? But they can hide it. In the front, it looks nice, it looks legit, but in the back, there's some shady stuff happening. So this is what happens to us with our rackets. And those things that we hang on to that we know don't serve us, but somehow they do, you know, and it's really sneaky. It's, so I don't know, does anyone have an example, or anyone want to share anything? Let me see if I can pull one up, if I can think of one. All right, so the person who keeps getting involved with the wrong women. What could be a reason that someone would want to hang on to something like that?
There's some unresolved business.
Maybe some unresolved business. Maybe a superiority kind of thing. Like I get to be better than other people somehow. I'm better than my, significant others. I don't know.
Familiarity.
Familiarity. That's something. Yes.
Inferiority.
Keeping from committing. Now that's a good one. That's a really good one, right? Keep from committing. Attention, yeah. Now that's an interesting one. Let's say somebody who, what is that syndrome? Munchausen by proxy? Y'all know what that is?
Yes.
That's when people, they have a child, let's say, that is sick, and they keep them sick because they like the attention that comes with being victim, like poor me. So that's a thing that happens. When we hang on to some of these things, it's because I get to say poor me. And then when it's poor me, then people come and they'll visit me, and they'll feel sorry for me, and maybe they'll give me money, or maybe they'll do whatever. But what happens is you stay as what? A victim. But you're getting something out of it. Right? You see how shady that is? You can say on the outside, I don't like how this looks, I don't want it to be this way, but on the other side of it, in the back room, you're going, but this poor me, this gets me something. Right? It gets me attention, it gets me love.
It's my story.
It's my story.
And I'm sticking to it.
Yes, it's my story and I'm sticking to it. So if you have things in your life that are feeling like that you're looking at it and going, why can't I break out of this? What is going on? Why does this keep hanging on me? Why is the weight hanging on me? Why are the relationships still going bad? Why can't I get these jobs? Why? You need to step back, take a look at it and say, is there something that I'm getting out of this in some way? And there has to be, or it would not still be there. Right? Okay. Any other questions or thoughts about that?
I always ask, why do I keep attracting this?
Why do I keep attracting this? Why do I keep attracting this? Yes.
Could it be a reflection?
What's that?
I said, could it be a reflection? Like, which is
Or
a
reflecting
significant
yourself.
other or a friend? It could be a reflection of you. Like, you so much likely, like,
Yes. Maybe we should. Where's the mic? Where's our mic running?
or it could be a reflection of your parents. Like,
Yes. So here's the reflection thing. What I want to say is that realizing that these things that are happening are a reflection of what's going on inside of you is a way for you to bust out of the paradigm.
Absolutely.
When you take responsibility, when you look at it and you go, like, what is this? What's in this for me? And turn it around, then you can take yourself out of it.
right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It makes sense, but it's not easy.
It's not.
Yeah, it can be difficult, but it can be easy. Maybe that's another paradigm, right? We tell ourselves that it's hard to change. Maybe that's just another paradigm, right? Because it can be easy. It can happen like this. I know someone had a paradigm shift. This one might sound kind of silly, but like realizing that she liked spinach. She would say all the time, I don't like it, I would never eat it. Why? Because her mother didn't like it, and they didn't serve it at home.
Right.
And then she went out somewhere and she ate spinach. She was like, wow, I really like spinach. How about that? It's a paradigm shift. It's a change. You got another one here?
It helped me a lot to understand the whole paradigm concept.
No.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
It's on.
Okay. A belief is nothing more than a thought repeated, and beliefs are paradigms. So all you've got to do is change the thoughts and keep repeating them, and it shifts everything. And it really is that easy.
It can be that easy. It can be that easy to grab a new affirmation, a new belief, a new thought. And sometimes even you don't believe it while you're saying it. You may not totally believe it, but there's a little piece of you that does, or it wouldn't have come into your awareness. And so you just keep saying it, keep repeating it, like the songs. You know, they become mantras for you. And one day you wake up and you're like, wow, I really do get it. Like you cleared out all that old stuff. So this is also more of the reasons that we keep this lack of peace, that we keep war, essentially. And I'm using war metaphorically, okay? We have wars that happen within us, right? Wars within our own hearts, wars within our own being, interpersonal relationships, there's wars there. There are reasons that we keep, this is the big paradigm, right? Why we keep it in place. Number one, we get to justify us versus them. In the relationship, it could be that. A personal relationship, it's us versus, it's me against the world. Right? Us versus them. But it's all dehumanizing. It's all objectifying other people. It's all making people less than. And to some degree, we have to do that in order to be able to hurt other people. Because we are made of love. We are wired from love. We are wired for compassion. We are wired to connect with people. And in order to be able to harm them in some way, we have to make them less than. We have to feel like they are not part of who we are. Another one is that, another reason that it stays in place is because it allows us an outlet for vengeance. Because vengeance can feel really good. Let's just be real about that, right? Somebody hurts you, you want to know that they hurt. Does anybody else feel like that? I mean, ever in your life? Right? I mean,
it's all love and light that somebody honks over behind you.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it is. It's so easy to be love and light until somebody does something. Then that's where the test is. Right? So we all have this kind of thing of wanting things to be even. You know, I want you to feel what I'm feeling. Satisfying the demands of fear by providing security. So I think I'm safe because I do the preemptive strike. I'm going to hit you before you hit me. That's a paradigm, right? It brings power to the victors, right? If you've got the force, you've got the might behind you, you feel powerful. Until that thing outside of you is gone, or you feel like you don't have enough weapons, or you need a higher wall, or who knows what. It's just, I don't know, I look at this stuff sometimes and I think we are living in such a crazy, crazy world. That's why it has to change. It has to change because it's just so insane right now. And it offers an avenue, war offers us an avenue to get what we want through use of force. So if I'm stronger, bigger, have more money, have more power, I can get what I want. And that's cool, good for me. And there are people that have a vested interest in keeping it that way. Right? So courage is the thing that allows us to make that shift. As you're standing on the edge of that paradigm going, I don't know what's next, I don't know what to do, and you stand on that edge and like, it's real easy to step back and just stay in the piles of horse manure because it's familiar. Or, but stepping out into something new without knowing exactly what that looks like, because again, it's in that realm of you don't know what you don't know, I have no idea what that's going to look like. Then it takes courage. And that's, remember the power versus force, that list I showed you where it has all the emotional states. You start at the bottom in shame, and then you move up to despair, and then from there you go to apathy, and then you go to grief and fear and like all this really low stuff, and you get to pride, which feels really good. It can feel really good. It's not as good as the other things, but it's way better than despair, and it's way better than shame. Pride is good. But then beyond that, the very next one up is courage. And that's where we flip over from this force idea or feeling like we need things outside of us to strengthen us. When we have courage, we step into the next level, which is stepping into our own power and knowing that I have everything I need to get through life, right? To get to the next side of this challenge, to get through whatever. So courage faces the fear and thereby masters it. Cowardice, however, represses fear and is thereby mastered by it. So courage is where everything flips over. And that's the tough place right there. That's the difficulty, is having that courage to say, all right, I'm going to step out. Because once you do it, you're done, right? You're in it. You're in it. You're in the next stage. It's just that, gosh, do I do it? That first step. Right? Can anyone else relate? Standing on the high dive, standing on the edge of the pool, it's like that first step. Once you're in, it's cool. It's just that first courage. So here's what we want to have. Does anyone want to say anything about that?
It's what we have been hit with for all week now. Everything we have picked up to read, we read positive stuff to each other often. That's how we keep ourselves from hurting each other. Positive things to each other regularly. And this one just keeps jumping up. I have Ernest Holmes' card, and I pull an Ernest Holmes card, and it talks about courage. And I have Louise Hay cards, and I pull a card, and it's talking about courage. So we've had a lot of discussion this week on the courage of moving forward in your life. Because we come to a place in our life continually, like plateaus, and we stand there for a while, and then that stuff starts building up that you're talking about. And so we look for another plateau to step out of it, but it takes courage.
It does. And you don't realize you have it once you go through it.
Yeah, you may not even know you have it.
Really
You don't know what you don't know.
You really don't. Because I had a rough week.
We need the mic. Where's the mic?
I'm just going to give y'all a little brief story. Last week, my daughter was rushed to the emergency room of an allergic reaction. I didn't leave the emergency room until 7 o'clock in the morning. Coming out the emergency room, I gets into a car accident. Somebody hit me at 7:07. Soon as I left the emergency room, and we right back up in here. On the day, the very first day that I had started my job permanently on the job, I still made it at 9 o'clock, but the coverage was like, you either gonna go to work or you either gonna chalk it. But I knew that I needed the income. So I ended up putting my first foot forward, ended up going to work, and everything ended up working out for me, but it was a really scary thing. I was really scared for that.
Yeah, a whole new
But I
experience.
didn't know that I had the courage and the strength to get through that, you know. But I did. It was a real successful story. And now I still have my job. My daughter has recovered.
All
And
right,
here
let's
I
give
am
her a hand for
today.
that.
You know.
You had a rough week.
And it was a learning experience, but the strength and the courage
Yeah,
behind
that's
everything that I didn't knew I had, it was like overwhelming. It was like, wow, such a small person, but actually dealt with some big life situations.
So courage, courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway, right?
Yeah,
Because if you don't have the fear, there's really no need for courage.
right.
So courage, you have to feel. You feel what it is. Right?
Martin Luther King said, don't worry about seeing the entire staircase.
I know
Just
that.
have the courage to take the first step
Yes.
into position.
And the rest the next step will reveal itself.
Exactly.
Maybe not the rest, but just
But
the
the-
next step,
one
right? You
step
get a
at
little
a
bit
time.
closer, like climbing that mountain. You get to see a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's what we're doing. That's what our spiritual practice is about, is getting higher and to that next higher place and the next higher place where you get a bigger vantage point, right? You have more choices. You have more opportunities. You can see more clearly which way to go when you're up at this higher vantage point. And you can do that metaphorically. You can do that through spiritual practice. You do that through meditation. You do that through coming here and hearing other people's stories and sharing. That's how you get to that higher place. You had something?
I find that courage is the tool that we've been given to find out how big we really are.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you have to, leap without the net and know that the net's always there.
That's faith, right? Is leaping and knowing that the net is going to catch you.
Without the courage,
You
you
can't
never
see
know
it.
that.
Mm-hmm. So, okay.
I'm gonna stay on Martin Luther King for a second. The courage that man had to do what he did in peaceful means, nonviolent means, when he was under enormous pressure to take violent actions to get what he wanted done. Courage doesn't mean you have the courage to go beat somebody up. Courage means that you have the inner faith and the inner strength to get things done peacefully, amidst criticism, amidst all kinds of things. So courage isn't always about being stronger. It's about just standing your ground.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Yes. That is the paradigm shift we're talking about. Yeah, Mark has one. Don't sit, Maddie. Don't sit.
It's a segue.
It'll work out today. I can't have this discussion without mentioning Elon Musk. And Elon he had two ideas, at least. One was to make America or the Earth a multi-planetary species, because he felt like at some point we would get hit with a meteorite, etc. That was his dream. He had a dream first. Okay? The second dream that he had was to get rid of fossil fuel because it's polluting our planet. And so he had a renewable energy dream. So like Martin Luther King, he had the dream first, and then he went about solving it. So I think that's what we need to do.
Awesome, yes. So we want to have the vision, right? That's why it's paradigms and possibility. We've been talking about vision. What is the vision? What does peace look like? What does peace look like? And let us be pulled by that possibility. Right now we're being pulled by possibility. We're also being pushed by pain, I think. We've got both things going on, which is telling me that this is why it is happening. This is the time we're ready. We are ready. Already. And we're the ones that are standing there on the edge. Some of us are already out here. Some of us are kind of midway. Whoa. And some of us are out there already. But it's happening. And there is going to be a point where we hit that tipping point, you know, where the consciousness just reaches a level where it just falls over and it becomes the new way. And people will look back on this and go, what the heck were they thinking? What were they thinking? Can you believe, let's say, I don't know, maybe 100 years from now, I don't know how long it's going to take, but they're going to look and they're going to go, can you believe that people used to do that? That they thought they could solve their problems by killing one another? How absurd. How absurd. What is wrong? What was wrong with them? I really believe that's going to happen.
What were they thinking?
Well,
You know, there is a poet, and he said to them, come to the edge. And they said, no, we're afraid. He said, come to the edge. No, we're afraid. Come to the edge. And they came to the edge. He pushed them, and they flew. And that's what we're talking about now. We're coming to the edge of that cliff. And we have to fly. We are created to fly, to soar above. It says, take yourself to the mountaintop, is what the scriptures taught us a long time ago. It's time to fly.
it's time to fly.
Not everybody was behind the automobile, you know.
That's right.
Even during the horsemanship process. Today it seems like it was a no-brainer to go to the automobile, but not everybody bought into it.
Yeah.
Remember the fear of going 20 miles an hour and what would happen to the people in the street?
Right,
You know,
right.
and that you could have a heart attack if you were moving at 36 miles an hour, one lady pointed out. So not everybody bought into that at the time, but today looking back, it's like, it should have been no brainer.
Yeah.
And hopefully 100 years from now, people will look back.
And how
Yes.
fast did they move down that tunnel that they just showed?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember the number, but yeah.
100 and something.
Courage starts small though. It starts at home.
Courage starts small, yeah.
It does start small. Like my personal favorite is having the courage to know when this is my kid, y'all. This is my kid, but it's gone from I have a kid to take care of to I have a kid that now knows how to take care of herself.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to let go. It has to start small.
That's another paradigm shift, right? That's a shift. When you go from being mom with kids at home and everything is nice and contained to all of a sudden your kids are on the nest and flying with their wings. You know, and you have to find a new way of being that you might not even know exists yet for you. So we want to have the courage to face the paradigms that are no longer working. Right? We know the stuff that isn't working. That's real easy to see. What you may not see is why you're keeping it in place, because again, it's that racket that's hanging on in the back, you know, that's a little sneaky. So have the courage to face that. Lean into conflict and discomfort. Lean into it. That's another part of this shift, right? Well, we have been socialized, we've been conditioned to stay away from the conflict, right? Like that's going to keep us safer. You know, I'll just surround myself with these walls and lots of guns, and I'll never have to go into that mess. You know, this is saying lean into it. This is saying look at the discomfort, look at this thing that you've been carrying, this burden, this pain, like dive right into it and watch what happens as it goes poof. Lean into the conflict and the discomfort. And then, and this one, be love, be light, be peace, be the presence, be that. Know that it's not going to happen from somebody out there. When you're getting cut off in traffic, it's you. You are the presence. Remember, you are the power and the presence of spirit. What do you do in that moment? It's not anybody else's business. It's not for anybody else to do. It's for you to deal with in that moment. That's yours to do. And that is what is going to contribute to this evolutionary shift as we go up to the next levels. It's for each one of us to do. Our deepest fear, I love this quote, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful, powerful, powerful beyond measure. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant? Who am I to be gorgeous? Who am I to be talented and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. We are all meant to shine, just as children do. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same.
Yeah.
As people see you stepping into your reality, your truth, as people see you step out in courage, as people hear your testimonies and your story, it gives them courage to take on their demons. It gives them courage to dive into their own pain. It gives them the courage to look at their shame and their this and their that and release it. So they can then step out and be who they came here to be and be that light. Be the presence of spirit. That brings us to our affirmation.